If you love sports documentaries, stay tuned because today on Athlete Story, we'll take a closer look at one of the upcoming sports movies. It's called After the Game, and we'll have a chat with the filmmaker herself, April Abeyta. This is Athlete Story, your show if you want to keep a connection to your athletic identity and other athletes while pursuing your new mission in life. I'm your host, Anja Bolbjerg, former world top 10 skier in mogul skiing and freeride skiing. Now pretty far into life after sports. So join me and other former athletes here on Athlete Story for resources to help you put your former sports career to work for you today. Here at Athlete Story, we know that some people have an MBA to lean on. You have your sports career. So subscribe now and get notified for every new episode. All right then, let's get started. After the Game is a basketball documentary where we follow a few real-life female athletes who played basketball on the same team in college back when the WNBA had only just launched. Now, the filmmaker April Abeyta actually played on that team herself, so she had access to capture not only the game action but also all the behind the scenes, the atmosphere, the emotions and the whole life around the game. Women's basketball was not really mediatized back then, and for sure nobody walked around with cameras like we do today, so we can look forward to some pretty exceptional footage in the movie, I think. I guess she must have carried around a big camera and caught it on tapes. Anyways, the theme of the movie is very core to the Athlete Story community because it revolves around that after the game part of sports and how the lessons from sports can be used and repurposed in life after sports. So in the movie, we will actually catch up with the women today in situations where they each discover how their background in sports is actually helping them tackle life's new challenges. But let's move on to the interview. I'll make sure to ask April to give some personal examples as well about how playing sports has influenced her own personality and lifestyle and career, and why it was important to make a movie about female student athletes from the 90s and then follow up today. All right, I'm so excited for you to meet this real filmmaker in the sports industry. So let's welcome April Abeyta for a chat about her movie, After the Game. Hi, April. Welcome to the show, Athlete Story.
How's it going?
Good. Thanks for coming on. I really appreciate it.
No, my pleasure. I'm happy to be chatting with you. So thank you for having me.
I'm curious about this project that you've been working on for quite a while, I can say. I think a movie called After the Game. Can you tell us a little about what that's all about?
Yeah, of course. So After the Game is really, it's a new documentary that is really about the long-term impact of competitive athletics, specifically on young women. And so we follow three women across really the span of 20 years. So we see them as student athletes for a small college in Southern California back in 1999, and their challenges, their successes, and then we correlate that flash forward to starting really in 2017 and through 2019, how they really translate things they learned as athletes into their professional challenges today off the courts.
Sorry, more specifically, they're basketball players, right?
Yeah, so they're on the same team. So our three characters we follow, we actually follow the head coach of that program at the time, who's also a former athlete. She played for UCLA, is actually Mary Haggerty is her name, and she has been honored as one of the 15 greatest women's basketball players of UCLA of all time. So she was quite successful as a student athlete herself. And then the athletes on the team in 1999 are a woman named Michelle Ruzzi, who was a senior going into that season, and then another woman named Holly Neves, who was a junior transfer student. So she was coming from a new school, trying to make her mark, find her place on a brand new team at that time. And so it's like them kind of figuring that out. And you'll see the correlations in the film of sort of how that same challenge actually comes up for her in a very similar way almost 20 years later.
So is that like the main theme of the movie, how the lessons you learn from sports, how you can use them in life after sports?
Yeah, exactly. Definitely. There's I think tied with that about what you commit and what sports can give to you, it doesn't necessarily always pay off in the way that you think it will. There's a great line and by one of the characters in the movie where she talks about if you put in the work, you will be rewarded. That reward may not translate into playing time, so you're not necessarily there's no guarantee that you're going to get more minutes, right? There's no guarantee that you're going to get that championship, but you will be rewarded. And how that pays off. And I think that's just like a great theme for the movie, because you see for some of these women, not that they haven't had successes in that 20-year span, but they continue to have different successes. So they put in the work back in 1999, and they're continuing to see those rewards pay off in different ways in their life that they didn't expect necessarily back when they were 21, 22 years old.
I love that theme, because success is such a relative term, right? And it develops over the span of your life. Like, what do you think is success when you're 20 years old is not the same maybe as later in life. So
totally.
What was the most important reason for you to make this movie?
Well, I think there were a couple things. When I actually started shooting these women back in 1999, it really started with just my love of sports and my respect for just women in sports and athletes. And at that time, there really was, no attention paid. I mean, I wouldn't say that we've made some strides since then. We have made huge strides in terms of just recognition and attention and quality and airtime and sports broadcasting and everything like that to women in sports. It was even worse back then, and so I really wanted to do something about it. I wanted to kind of showcase that, I knew these women. I played with these women myself as a student athlete myself, and I knew how hard these women worked, and how hard it was, and how talented they were. And so I wanted to showcase that. And it just sort of morphed over time as, I continued these relationship with these women and seeing how, what they've gone through in their lives, like well into adulthood, and how they, translate what they learn as student athletes, either directly or indirectly. Because sometimes it's like, you don't even realize it's a little subconscious, those learnings that you have, that you only get really from sports. And that's sort of like that story, that narrative just sort of pivot. And I felt like that was still really compelling. And the more I started talking to other folks about it, it sort of convinced me that this was a good time to tell that story now, as well as with what was going on with these characters in their personal lives at this point. So it sort of all was serendipitous, I guess. It came together at the right time of them facing these unique challenges. And I feel like it really was, I don't know, there's something special about timing right now, even with the success of the USA Women's World Cup, and here in the U.S. it just being like such a big deal, and now this, more attention, and, it's just a really good time, I think, to kind of continue this message of, women's athletics and the importance of it long term, and, kind of just capitalize on this movement that's been happening over the summer.
Yeah, that's really nice. Well, you've been really ahead of your time, because like nowadays everybody will be filming and having footage of practice and everything, but you did this like back in the 90s, right?
I got permission from the team, from the school at the time, and it helped because I was a student athlete myself, and I was a film student, and so I sort of wrapped it into this, like my studies. And I, at a time when cameras weren't so ubiquitous with everything, it was like, it took some getting used to, I think, with the players and the coaches, and just sticking a camera in their face, like, constantly. But they really got used to it, and so just hours and hours of, locker room talk and training room and road trips. I think that one particularly special thing about smaller universities like Chapman University, which is where all these women were members of the Chapman University women's basketball program, was that because it's so small, you just spend even more time. Like, so the travel, think of all the travel, right? You go to all the other games where maybe bigger programs can get on an airplane. Like, no, when you're small, you drive everywhere. Like, you sit in a van or a bus with your teammates for hours and hours and hours, and just you really get to know them. And so capturing all those little moments of what it's kind of really like to be on a team and share those moments and learn from each other, I think it was just something that also made it special. And I just knew that I wanted to see. I think when you grow up as an athlete, as as a woman, you just don't get the respect sometimes, like you talk to people about what you do or your sport, and it would, it's still, I'm sure it does today for young women, but it gets downplayed. It's like, oh, it's not that hard because you're a woman, or you guys aren't as good, or you aren't as tough, and that always really bothered me. And so I felt the best way to combat that misconception was to film the team and put together, look, how hard they're working. You know, they're doing sprints up and down the court until they puke, you know. It's just like they're pushing themselves to their max potential to try to be successful at their sport, and that's admirable.
There's nothing like video to tell that story. I know personally, maybe I've told this before on the podcast listeners if I've told it before, but I didn't really feel like people understood what kind of sport I was doing until very, very late in my career when I did have videos and could, you know, post on YouTube and stuff, because people just don't relate just from words, and when they see me as a person, maybe they don't think that I would go do something like that. So I totally understand what you're talking about. And then from the respect point of view, I think that's a very good point. I mean, because we don't see all that many women, especially in team sports. Well, in Europe maybe it's different, but in the US, what do you have for team sports where you show women? Only lately is the basketball coming on and the soccer with the success of the team, right? But, so I think it'll be cool to watch too. It'll be cool to get that atmosphere of the camps and the team and the traveling and all that. Yeah.
And it definitely will feel aged because technology in terms of video production has changed so much. So it's all, you know, like 4x3, so it's smaller framed, and the quality's not quite as good as the stuff we're shooting today. But I actually really embrace that, because I want the viewer to sort of have this sense of nostalgia also when they're looking at this older stuff. And if anything, it's like, well, yeah, you know, these women weren't playing because they thought they were going to go play professional basketball. I mean, especially at that time, you got to remember the WNBA was like 2 years old. So it just wasn't, I mean, it's very rare today for any athlete, male or woman, to go play at the professional level or play like even as high level as you did in your sport. But even more so back then, it was really for a love of the game that they were playing and just wanting to compete and try to be the best that they could be. And so it's just like that nostalgic kind of like, hopefully that feel really comes across in the footage as well from the stuff from 1999.
And so right now you're in post-production, the end of it, right? So.
Yeah. Well, we still have a lot of work to do, but we are making really good progress, and we're making excellent progress on our edit. Working with a music composer currently for some kind of original score and original music in it. So early 2020 we should be premiering it. So
okay, so this is obviously passion project for you, since it's been in the back of your mind having all that footage and stuff. How do you finance this project?
How do I finance this project? It's a great question, because financing is different for every film, whether short film, feature film, what have you. This is a combination of just personal investments, as well as we've made really good strides on the personal investment piece, and then we will be running a crowdfunding campaign in about another month for the remaining finishing funds. So, but we're sort of just like full steam ahead until we totally run out of the cash that we have on hand. So
okay, well, if you have a link to the crowdfunding, we'll share it here. So
thank you. Yeah. When we set that up, we'd love to get the word out on that.
So if someone else thinks, oh, this is really cool, I would love to make a movie about something from their sport or whatever. What has been the hardest part or the biggest hurdle in doing all of this?
That's a great question. I mean, in any filmmaking or video production endeavor, financing seems to be one of those things that people are always stressed about, and there's a lot of questions around, but is not really talked about a lot in terms of how to go about financing. So I find like that's always a hurdle, like where are you get the money from and things like that, and how do you talk to people about getting money, and so that's always a challenge. I think another thing is like depending on, if you're making a documentary, the other challenge is just having the patience to see where the story leads you, right? So working with my characters, again, I mentioned it's sort of just like, it was just great timing that all three of them were kind of this convergence of these different professional challenges for them, and seeing where that goes. And like, they don't necessarily unfold the way that you expect them to, and you can't control it. Like, you can't really influence that. It's not like I can be like, oh, it'd be great if you did this, and like there's no directing them, like you might a fiction movie, or writing the script in advance, so to speak. There's none of that, and so that's, I think, at least for me personally, is definitely, I think, a challenge. Given my own background, I've mostly been in like scripted upfront work, and just trying to let that unfold and see where that goes. Again, picking up the filming again 2017, and then just wrapping filming in 2019. That's over a span of 2 years, just to catch up with where they're at in their current lives today, and that's patience. And that's actually pretty short for a documentary. I've heard that the average amount of time for a documentary is like 5 years, and so that's a lot of patience to let that story unfold.
A lot of courage too, because you're putting yourself out there, right? You're putting yourself out there for judgment. And
especially for my characters, and I'm so grateful to all three women to really opening themselves up and sharing, not only just where they're at and sort of like the mundane day-to-day stuff, but just like emotionally how they're feeling about things, and they're very, very open. I think it's really helpful that as a filmmaker, if you go in and really have relationships with them ahead of time. Sometimes you don't always have that luxury. In this case, I did, since I've known them for 20 years plus. But I think that really helped, just have, like, with them feeling comfortable, and they know that, like, I'm not here to trick them into something. I'm not here to kind of get like this gotcha moment. I'm here to really hear their story and communicate it in the best way possible. I feel honored that they trust me with their lives on camera, and I'm excited for them to. They haven't seen any of the edits yet, so I'm excited to be able to screen it for them when we're ready.
Yeah, that will be exciting. Well, we talked about success before. I'd like to know, to you, what would be a success for this movie?
We get people showing up to screenings. That's like, I guess because the goal of this film is, I really want to get it obviously in front of as many people as possible. But I know there's this very specific audience for this film, and that is, athletes, former athletes, also I think parents of young athletes. And so I would love for people to see this film and really think about the rewards of participation in whatever sport, not just basketball, but, it could be skiing, it could be, soccer, it could be whatever. But maybe you could start to think about what those other long-term benefits are, and encourage, if they have a young daughter who's playing sports and thinking about quitting, or if they know somebody else who's doing it and thinking about quitting, and just thinking about, like, changing that mindset about why they participate. Because there's a good chance they're so hung up on, like, oh, I have to go pro, or I have to go get a scholarship, or I have to, try to make the Olympics, or whatever. These which are awesome, really lofty goals. But I think what this film shows is that it's not just about that. It's about the relationships you form. It's about those things that you learn in terms of how to work with people that you may not be best friends with, but you've got to find, how to reach that common goal. It's, all these other things, that you just sort of get forced into when you're playing sports. And I really want to get the film in front of those people so they can help encourage their daughters or their friends' daughters, or whatever, just to kind of keep it up. And it's okay if you're not the Division I athlete. You can go play at a junior college, which, I don't know if New York, they have junior colleges, but it's like a 2-year college to go, and they have athletic programs, and they're also, some of them are really, really competitive, and they'll still get a lot out of that, and that's great. So success to me is we are able to set up the community screenings that we want to set up across the United States, and we get people attending, and we get people just loving the film. Like, it won't be like any scientific, I guess, like there's no like hard data that we'll collect on it, but it'll be talking with people and hearing their thoughts on it, and just seeing how they're thinking about it, and if they're thinking about that participation in any kind of a different way. And so that's, I get, it's really fuzzy. Sorry, it's not like a concrete, like, oh, we will, make a gazillion dollars out. Like, that's not gonna happen. It's a documentary. Financially, I would like to recoup our investment in it. For our investors in film. It's really about just, I get changing people's mindsets about what women's athletics can do. Long-winded answer. Sorry.
All right. Well, I'd love to hear just a little bit about your own story in sports, and because I'm sure that has a great influence on how you decided to do this movie. So can you just tell us briefly how is your own athlete story?
I love sports. I loved playing basketball specifically from a young age. I mean, growing up, I did a lot of little random, things, but probably the most competitive early on was basketball. But even now, it sounds like I started playing in 8th grade. Like nowadays, that sounds so late. They're starting with like 5-year-olds. It's crazy. Got a chance, did pretty well, and got a chance to play at the college level. So I also played at Chapman University with these women, and I loved it. Again, I mentioned like playing pro. At that age, I would have loved to play the WNBA. Like that was like, oh my God, I knew that I wasn't level. I'm 6 feet, but I play center, so it's kind of small at the pro level. But I tried my darndest. But I still had a pretty good career in college. And I think that was one of the earliest lessons I learned, kind of just thinking about as I moved on and really focusing on my career in video production and filmmaking and media. I put in a lot of the work. It didn't exactly pay off the way I wanted to in terms of being able to take it to the next level, but I still had a great career. I had these amazing relationships with really incredible, fun, wonderful people connected to the sport. I started to realize, like, okay, maybe it's not this is the way it's going to pay off. And little, like, random things, like going into professional. So I started my career with Fox Sports, which is a sports broadcast company in the U.S. And like little things like that would pay off, I guess, in terms of playing a sport, would just be like connecting with the men in the office, and being able to talk sports. Whereas like maybe other women at that time anyways, sounds like a stereotype, but it was sort of real back then, where like a lot of women weren't really that I was around in the work environment, but I would be able to connect with them on a different level and develop a different relationship because we could talk about sports. Or we'd even after work go play like a pickup game of basketball. And because I could play, I got more respect. That probably, which weirdly I probably wouldn't have gotten in the work environment without that, because I was some young woman just totally green and they'd be like, oh, who's she? I don't care. But because I could play pickup ball with a bunch of the bosses, it like worked in my favor. So like that was small, and I started to pick up these little small things that I found were sort of just helping me in my career. And then take that coupled with a work ethic and that I learned through playing basketball of just, put in the work, put in the extra time, try to do your best at everything that you can do, because when you don't and you start to just sort of, skate by and you think that you can be a little lazy in a moment, and you see that, like, oh, that didn't actually really help you in the long term. Like, somebody noticed that you were lazy, and they're going to remember that, and then you're like, oh, they're not going to think of me to do this project. They're not going to think of me for this promotion. So it was always those type of things and applying that. And sometimes, it's not being conscious about that for years even. Just like kind of you just go about your life and then move to a different company and different, relationships. But then every once in a while I would come back to like what are the things that I loved about being competitive and the things I loved about even like the conditioning, which now like at that time I was like, oh my God, I hate going for, sprint workouts or, what the crazy things that our coach used to do. And, but as you get older, I guess you're starting to appreciate that conditioning aspect of it, and just seeing the payoff, and like, you put in work, but like the more you practice in anything in life, the better you're going to get at it. And just really like realizing that and appreciating that, and then being more proactive about doing that and all the non-sports things in your life. Like you can, like creative work.
Yeah, and patience, like you mentioned. that
payoff
doesn't come the following day necessarily.
Yeah.
But
yeah, like creative work, sometimes people think that you either just, if you're an artist, you just have it, or you're a great writer, you just have it. And I'm sure that's true for some people, just like there's some athletes who are just amazing athletes, like they're just born that way. But for a lot of creative endeavors too, if you keep practicing, if you want to become a good writer, write every day, like that's practice. If you want to be a great director of photography, like you go out and you shoot stuff, you film things, and you'll get better. You may never get to the level that you think that you should be or want to be, but you'll definitely get better. And so just applying that there, and I've done that throughout career, just trying things and just practicing and putting it in, and also like stretching your limits a little bit, so taking on, I've taken on projects or taken on roles where at the time I was like, oh God, I don't know if I can do it. I think I can. Sure, I'll give it a try, and then you do it, and you do a great job, or even if not everything goes the way you want it to, like you learned a lot, you still did really good work, but you just, you push yourself for the things that you can control and do the best that you can do.
Yeah, I think that's maybe one of the differences between men and women, if we're talking general, that we seem to have this default, I don't know if I can do it attitude.
Yeah.
And I think that's where sports really helps us to just, well, I'll give it a try. I remember organizing the Danish national championships for many years in skiing, because I was kind of the only skier in my country doing this.
Wow.
So just to try to get the girls to compete was really, really hard. Unless there was enough of them feeling that they weren't so, competitive, then it was okay. So I think that's a thing we have. Instead of just going out and trying and giving our best, we kind of have this default, I'm not really going to go there because I don't think I can do it, instead of just, there. So, I think sports has a great power and lesson like that.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that, spot on. It absolutely does. And like you said, sports, I think, helps you, like, overcome that. Like, just sort of, like, you second guess that lack of confidence that you have initially, because you remember, like, oh yeah, I didn't know if I could do those things on the basketball court. I didn't know if I could win that game, or I didn't know if I could hit that shot, and I did. And let's try this, Or sometimes you didn't, but you tried and you felt good about trying, right? What's that phrase? Like, you're gonna miss 100% of the shots you never take, right? So like having that approach, and I feel like I've seen it. So most of my professional career in video production has been more like on the corporate side. So I've always done also like filmmaking and also freelancing for other video production. But I regularly worked with like corporations and either building or managing in-house creative teams. And so now I've had an opportunity to work with a lot of different folks and a lot of like young women. I think that kind of like where that really sets them back, where you're talking about like the lack of confidence and kind of this like innate like, oh, I'm not sure, it really comes to when they're talking about like if they want a raise or promotion. Where I've had my own experience, like I've had a lot of young men come to me and, they have no like reservation about asking for a promotion or a raise, whether deserved or not. Like that's, a different story, but just that idea of asking. And I probably only had like one or two women who had that same attitude, and most will not ever really ask. They sort of just wait until the designated time of an annual performance review, or they would ask and you could just tell they were so scared. So I would congratulate. In those instances, I would stop them and be like, I know what you're going to ask. Like, I can tell. I think it's great that you're asking. I might not give you what you want. There's a lot of factors involved. But I really wanted to encourage them to, like, conquer that fear, and have that confidence. Be like, it's okay to ask, and it may fail. It's like, you may not get what you're asking for. But that's okay. Like, I don't disrespect somebody just because they're asking. But yeah, so I saw that time and time again, that difference, like firsthand, a business and corporate environment between men and women. And it's just, I think the ones that didn't have the hesitation, they might have been former athletes. Now that I think about it, actually, I'm not 100% sure if they were, but they could. I could see if they were.
That might be the link between what's that stat that about 90% of women who are in the C-suite have a background in sports. Maybe it's because they asked for the promotion or asked for the
Yeah, I think that's a good point. It wouldn't surprise me at all. If you want it, you gotta ask for it. That's sort of been my approach in my own professional career too. It's like, and that's it. Like I'm the person who will go. It took a while to get there, but I'd be the person who go in and talk to like my boss or somebody, like figure out who's a decision maker. So that's a key thing. I always figure out who the key decision makers are. Same with filmmaking too. And like if you're trying to find money, you want to talk to people who are the decision makers. Like, and that may be the person with money, and it may be somebody else that they pass that decision off to. Find out who it is and just go ask. Like don't be a jerk about it. Like be nice and like be ready to present like why it's whatever you're asking for is either earned or deserved, like because you do this, that, and the other, or you bring this value. Because at the end of the day, like when it comes to money specifically, it's not about like the money per se necessarily. It's about the value and translating that value to whatever that dollar amount is, right? And like what they see out of it. So same for like financing. I think it's like what's that value they think they're going to get out of it for the amount they might be investing in it. So for part of it, anyways.
Well, it seems like you knew pretty much already when you were still playing that you wanted to be in the film industry. How was that transition? Did you find it easy and natural that now it was time to do something different, or do you have any?
No.
No.
It was not an easy transition at all. It was terrible, actually. I think I will say today I think is a really incredible time for filmmaking, because it's just so much more accessible now, and that's why I keep doing my own projects, because it's like, wait, I can make more of it. Whereas, especially when I finished film school in 2000, like it just like the tools weren't as available, like it wasn't as like financially accessible. It was pretty much controlled by a small group of people. I mean, the big obviously studios control a lot when it comes to theatrical releases and things like that still, but there's so many other avenues and so many other distribution points today that didn't exist back then. And so, like, trying at that time, it was really about trying to get into the big places that already existed. I think this attitude still persists a little bit today, from my own experience, but certainly back then it was very, like, closed off. It was sort of like this, if you just had a relationship with somebody sort of get you in the door, so to speak, to do work. I mean, the only reason I got to get into Fox Sports at that time was because I somehow scored an internship, and then I worked my butt off on this internship, which was a free internship, so I didn't get paid for it at all. But that was okay with me, because I just really I thought I really wanted to work there, and I was super excited, so I was going to do the best that I could do at that time. And I met some cool people there too that started to see the value I could bring, which I was fortunate about that. But yeah, it was very closed off. But at the same time, like I'm sure this still exists today, but there was just a ton of ego. I've never been a person who just wants to like kind of, I guess, kiss other people's butts and, like play those games. And especially back then, I didn't have the confidence to really, like, I think, put up with the ego. It was just, it was tough. It was dealing with some nice people, but, like, a lot of jerks, too, and a lot of people who maybe got their, like, sense of identity from what they were doing and were very defensive about, like, anybody new, coming and working at their business or their, studio or what have you.
They weren't necessarily there to make you be the best you could be.
No, there was none of that. I would share stories about, like, just work cultures and attitudes, and it's changed a lot, which I think is great. Like, there's much more of a tendency to actually want to enrich and develop employees. Not then. It was like, you show up, you don't ask questions, you just, like, you do your job, and I don't care if you want to grow and learn and do more. Like, it wasn't the attitude. I'm sure that was not the case for everywhere at that time, but it was just my experience kind of coming in, and then other people that I knew that were trying to, like, break into different studios and, like, in terms of getting a job and stuff. And I just really had a hard time with it. So I kind of ended up detouring and taking a very different kind of route, always working in media and film production and video, but working in, after that experience, I started to kind of be on the outskirts of, which has now become like their own huge industry, but working in, like I mentioned, then working in in-flight entertainment. So working with studios, but in a different way of sort of sourcing material to go on airplanes. I worked in retail media, so the content that might go into a store, like when you see the checkout lines, the screen there, there's ads everywhere. So working in that, also working in digital media. Most recently, my last role with a full-time kind of corporate entity was digital channels they're distributing on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, so on and so forth. And I've learned something from all of them. I feel like I've applied my experience as an athlete to all of them. In different ways, and it's been a varied career for me, and I'm excited to be focused on this film full time right now. So,
okay, so you decide to do this movie about taking lessons from sports into life after sports. Do you have an example of how you've done this yourself?
Definitely. I mean, I feel like there's a ton of ways. I feel like a really common aspect, I think, I don't know if I started to mention this, but is, especially specifically for team sports, you are thrown together with a group of people, you have a common goal, you're put through a lot together in terms of, like, physically just pushing yourselves, and so you really have the shared experience around that. But outside of that, like, you may not have ever been friends with these people. You just have a common love for that sport and working hard and wanting to be competitive and the best. But that idea of, like, trying to figure out how you work together, I mean, I was really lucky, I think, in some of my teams, like most people, we really, I think, became close, we became friends, and we maintained relationships. But there are also, throughout my own athletic career, like, sometimes there are people that you just didn't click, like not like that you were enemies or anything that dramatic, but you just didn't click. But again, you had to find a way to work together. And I think when you move off of sports and into your, whatever your non-athletic related career is, you're going to find the same thing. You're going to be like, you can't control everybody that you work with. Even if you become the CEO, like you have a board of directors that you don't necessarily pick who you work with, but you have a common goal, and you're trying to work towards that. So you have to figure out like how you work with that person. Even if you just don't get along, you don't see eye to eye on things, you don't maybe even, you know what the goal is, but how to reach that goal, you have two different ideas about how to do that, and how to compromise and work together and just still make it happen. Because if you can't do that, everybody suffers. And it's the same thing on a sports team. If you couldn't figure out like how to run a play together, like you're gonna, for basketball anyways, like you're gonna cause a turnover. If you're not on the same page, somebody's trying to pass me the ball and I think that she's gonna pass it over here, like I'm over here, you're never gonna score. I think in the work environment, if you can't figure out, I can think of a specific example with particular team members, like from like engineer, like just one guy in particular I can think of, like working with an engineer. He was super smart. He's really great. It's like he had a chip on his shoulder, and I think at that time, like for myself, I probably wasn't as, I guess, empathetic to whatever like was causing that chip on the shoulder for him. So we just sometimes didn't see eye to eye. Like we never were like combative or anything, but it's starting to starting to figure out like, oh, I think I need to be more empathetic with this guy. I think that's how I'm going to connect with him so that we can work together and like solve this problem that we're faced, with like trying to get this video to this, like the technology side of delivering some video to some clients. And, so using that, I was like, that's a direct example. I can think of like a specific individual where definitely I had to like stop and try to think like, how am I going to work with this guy? Like I have to figure it out, even if I don't want to, but I have to figure it out. I can't like not deliver the video to the client.
Okay, well, cool. I think we got it all covered. If people have any questions, they can just write in and we'll get it all done.
I'd love to encourage anybody who's interested in kind of following the film too, to not only follow us on Instagram, but also they can check out our website at afterthegamethemovie.com, and they can sign up for our newsletter. And we, send regular updates up too, just to see. So like they'll learn about when it's premiering in their area, if there's screening in their area, all those good things.
So that's afterthegamethemovie.com.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna wish you all the best of luck for this, and I'll make sure to post the links for your crowdfunding, because I'm sure some people here who wanna support a movie like that. I will for sure.
Thank you. Yeah. So I think people will love it. I think that they'll be really. I hope they do. I think it's a movie for the audiences at the end of the day. So
you've been great. You've shared a lot of cool stuff and good wisdom from the sports world. So it's been fun. It's been fun. Thank you for doing this, and all the best of luck to you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.
All right. Bye.